in the championship game. And, Ezekiel, they were the reason why they won that championship. It was the offense. In this day and age in football, offense wins championships. All the officiating is geared towards scoring points in the offense. The defense is at such a disadvantage in all of football in this day and age, where you can outscore a team and win a championship in football these days.
I hear what you're saying, and Cardell did a masterful job in the playoffs last year, and Ezekiel Elliott, or Zeke. See, I know him as Zeke because I used to be his academic advisor at Ohio State. But those guys, they did a great job in that national championship game. But I think what you're forgetting is that vaunted Oregon Ducks offense, they only scored 20 points against Ohio State. Ohio State got plenty of stops against a team that a lot of people were saying they can't be stopped. Again, this is a team that the week, or not the week before that, but the game before that, they put up crazy numbers against Florida State, a team who had been just getting by, winning games, but they were undefeated. They were the defending national champions. And so they put up crazy numbers in the Rose Bowl against that good Florida State defense. They make it to the national championship game, and Ohio State is able to stop them consistently. And that's how they were able to get ahead and play from ahead and put Oregon in a position that they weren't used to all season.
Pierre, I understand what you're saying completely. Ezekiel Elliott ran for over 200 yards in the national championship game. Ohio State's defense was chilling. They didn't really have to. There was no pressure to stop Oregon. Ohio State went up. They pounded them into the ground. And, but getting back to this year's championship game, because we're getting a little bit, off subject with last year's champion, the Ohio State Buckeyes. I really believe that Oklahoma is going to surprise some teams. Now, I live in ACC country. I want Clemson to do well. But if Clemson is not very, very, very careful, Oklahoma will beat them. And Oklahoma, because they don't have any pressure, no one expects them to win. People like you don't expect them to win. The media doesn't expect Oklahoma to do anything. So they have no pressure. Clemson is the number 1 overall seed. They have all the pressure. And they have they have a young quarterback who hasn't been on that stage before. Now, mind you, Deshaun Watson, impressive young man, but they haven't been on that stage. It's going to be interesting to see how these teams perform on that stage, because the only people that have been on that stage are Bob Stoops and Nick Saban. Those are the 2 coaches with national championships.
Yeah, and again, I'm not saying that Oklahoma doesn't have a shot to win it, because it's college football. Anything can happen in college sports, period, but especially in college football. It's a game played off emotion. It's a game that's riddled with turnovers that can change a game. Just ask Alabama when they play Ole Miss. 5 turnovers. And everybody always says, well, Alabama should be undefeated, except for they had 5 turnovers against Ole Miss. Well, that's a part of the game. You can't have 5 turnovers and expect to beat a good team. That's a part of the game. So things like that can happen. And I'm not saying that Oklahoma can't win games, but what I'm saying is there are other teams that are more deserving to be into this Final Four discussion, and not even discussion, the actual Final Four now, than the Oklahoma Sooners. I think that Iowa, Ohio State, and Michigan State, all 3 were better than Oklahoma. And if you put all 3 of them in the Big 12, they would win the Big 12 this year. I think probably Stanford may win the Big 12 this year.
Pierre, you are like severely disrespecting Oklahoma. I mean, they lost 1 game, and it was early in the season.
Texas.
But it's a rivalry game.
Man, that's like losing to the Girl Scouts of America, man.
Like that's up in the air. Clemson was scared to death at South Carolina in their last regular season game. South Carolina had an awful season, but that's their rival. They played Clemson really tough, and Oklahoma lost to their rival, Texas. So don't discount what Oklahoma did this season. They went through their schedule. They beat everyone on their schedule except for Texas. There's several teams with them 1 loss. Ohio State made the mistake this year.
Yeah, they lost late, but they lost to a good team, and they lost very closely in a game that so much rain they couldn't even see out there.
Oklahoma lost early in the season. But a lot of people said the same thing about Ohio State last season. Oh, they lost to Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's not good. But Ohio State recovered from that early loss. Similar to Oklahoma. I see a lot of similarities in this Oklahoma team as I do in that Ohio State Buckeye team. But, Pierre, I'm not here to argue with you, man. I'm here to spread love, the all things sports way. And we can go on the entire show with this just the college football playoffs, man. But, we have so much more to get into on this All Things Sport podcast. We'll be right back.
With more of the All Things Sport podcast with Daimeon Banks and Pierre Banks on Spreaker Radio. Gentlemen, the floor is yours.
And we're back on the All Things Sport podcast. I am Daimeon Banks alongside Pierre Banks. Pierre, we've had so much great feedback on this next segment, man. When we came up with this idea, this is just something that we say in our everyday lives when we see something so outrageous, so egregious, so asinine, so big word I can't even come up with right now. It is the
bruh, for real
segment of the All Things Sport podcast. And my bruh for real, is going to be Mike Pettine, the head coach for right now of the Cleveland Browns. Mike Pettine, as you all know, not a real big fan of his backup quarterback, Johnny Manziel, former Heisman Trophy winning Texas A&M. Granted, some people think that Johnny Manziel has brought things on himself. Johnny Manziel, as you all know by now, he was benched, a couple games back for partying on his off week. Josh McCown, he's hurt, out for the season. Insert Austin Awful Davis, and the Browns lose 37-3 to the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, 4 games remaining in the NFL season. Mike Pettine feels a little flame. He's on the hot seat. He's probably, all likelihood, not going to be the head coach in Cleveland next season.
Cannot play with him.
But in order to try to save his job, who does he turn to play these last 4 games? None other than Johnny Football. The same Johnny Football that you just sat down, and benched him because he wasn't living up to the standards of an NFL quarterback. Mike Pettine, grow a pair. If you made the decision to sit Johnny Manziel, stick with that decision, win, lose, or draw. Austin Davis had a bad game. So what? Play Austin Davis. You're sinking with this ship regardless if Johnny Manziel plays good, regardless if he doesn't play good. You're out of here, man.
Cannot win with him.
You're not going to be in Cleveland next year. You might as well put the house on the market. Go ahead and pay 2 men in a truck, Mayflower moving, whoever you have to pay to move that stuff out of your house. Get your kids out of school. You're not going to be in Cleveland next year. Don't turn to Johnny Manziel when you need him. You're going to sit him 1 week and then try to play him to save your job, to save your arse the next week.
Cannot coach with him.
Now, granted, the last 4 games are pretty tough for the Cleveland Browns. Last 4 games on the Browns schedule, the 49ers, they're going to host the 49ers. That's a toss-up game. You got Blaine Gabbert playing for the 49ers. I'm not even going to get started on the 49ers. That's my team. I don't like the way that they're doing Colin Kaepernick, but I digress. Then they're at Seattle. They could lose that game on 100-0. After the Seahawks, Pierre, they are at the Kansas City Chiefs. Andy Reid is pretty much doing, a yeoman's job for the Kansas City Chiefs. They are on a 5-game winning streak. Don't know if they're going to still be on that winning streak when they play the Browns, but if they're not, they're going to start another one when they play Cleveland. Regardless of how Johnny Manziel plays, and I think Johnny can play, but the Browns just aren't that good. The Browns end the season at Pittsburgh. Actually, they're going to host the Steelers. The Steelers are in the playoff hunt right now. Ben Roethlisberger playing unbelievable football at the quarterback position. If not for being injured earlier in the season, he could be in the MVP race with Cam Newton. Right now, Cameron Jarrell is my MVP pick. But again, my digression is at an all-time high. Mike Pettine, you're going to get fired. Shame on you for trying to set Johnny Manziel up to fail in his last 4 games. You're going to be like, oh, I was right. He can't play.
Can't do it.
Or best case scenario for you is Johnny Manziel plays good, and through the grace of God, you have a job in Cleveland next season. So my bruh, for real, Mike Pettine and his awful, awful coaching decisions.
Bruh, for real? Daimeon, you firing that man after just 2 seasons at the helm?
They fired the coach before him after 1 season, Rob Jasinski. Why not fire Mike Pettin? Mike Pettin has won 5 games in 2 seasons?
Touche.
I mean, they're awful, man. With a cap, they're playing a quarterback named Austin Awful Davis. He gets drugged behind the woodshed, against the Bengals. Now you want Johnny Football to save your job? If I was Johnny Football, I would tell Mike Pettin, thank you. I will start. I'm going to play my best, but I'm going to audible every damn play.
Bruh, for real? Now, my bruh, for real, for the week, I'm not going to go to one person. I'm not going to go to one team even. I'm going to go to an entire division in the National Football League, and that's the NFC East.
The NFC East.
Oh my God. The NFC East is god awful this season. And so when you look at that division, you might as well start at the bottom because it epitomizes what that division is. The Dallas Cowboys, America's team. The Cowboys are 4-8. Now, mind you, there was a time in the season where the Cowboys lost 7 games in a row.
I want winners.
That time was not that long ago. Before the Dallas Cowboys knocked off the Miami Dolphins and Tony Romo's return, they had lost 7 games in a row. You got Jason Garrett, who's the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, while Mark Richt had a 10-3 season and then a 9-3 season this year and was relieved of his duties in Athens, Georgia. Mr. Garrett is somewhere drinking a cookies and cream milkshake right now, celebrating his win over the Washington Redskins that he didn't even deserve. You're second place in the NFC East, but that's because the 3 teams in front of you are tied at 5-7. Now let's move on to those 3 teams. Above the Dallas Cowboys, in 3rd place, the New York Football Giants. Before their training camp even started, their best defensive lineman blew off some of his fingers in a July 4th fireworks accident, which set the tone for the entire season. Now they're 5-7. So of those 7 games, they've been leading in the 4th quarter 5 times before they given up that 4th quarter lead and eventually lost.
I want winners.
So their record could be a lot better and they could have a stranglehold on this awful division if they were able to close games. Now you got 2-time Super Bowl winning coach Tom Coughlin, who we talk about a hot seat. I mean, right now he's sitting on Lucifer's throne.
Cannot coach with him.
Then you move on to the Philadelphia Eagles, another coach on the hot seat. Again, I'm not sure why Mr. Garrett is the only coach in this division that is not on the hot seat, but Chip Kelly brought in that offense the first year, won the division, had LaShawn McCoy, who was playing at a all-time high level. And then during the offseason, he let LaShawn McCoy go to Buffalo. So you give up your top rusher. You bring in one of the top rushers in the league. Let's not forget what DeMarco Murray was able to do last year with the Dallas Cowboys. In 12 games, he has over 580 yards. 500 yards. Well, let's just call it an even 600. He has 600 yards in 12 games now for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Cannot play with him.
They also got rid of Nick Foles. Nick Foles, who one season had 27 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, phenomenal numbers. They let Nick Foles go, or they traded Nick Foles for the ever injured and never on the field Sam Bradford.
Bruh, for real?
What kind of move is that? They did get a big win on Sunday. They went up to Foxborough. They beat the Gronkless, the Julian Edelman-less Patriots, and the New England Patriots. You got to look yourselves in the mirror this week. You got to say, how in the world do we, as the AFC leading New England Patriots, lose to this god-awful team from this god-awful division? And then you move up to the team that's leading the division, also at 5-7, the Washington Redskins, led by Jay Gruden. The Washington Redskins really set the tone early in the season, actually in the preseason. This is a team that Jay Gruden, as their leader, didn't want their starting quarterback to be the starter. RG3, very high draft pick for the Washington Redskins, and the owner wanted RG3 to be the starter. He wanted him to be the franchise quarterback. Now, there was a preseason game. I don't know if you remember this, but I believe it was against the Rams. RG3 was getting battered. I mean, he was getting hit hard, and he was getting hit often in that preseason game. And instead of Jay Gruden pulling RG3 from that game and trying to preserve his quarterback for the season, Jay Gruden left his quarterback out there.